Yeah, we are live. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this very interesting session on winning in the digital age with none other than Nitin Sethji. Nitinji, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us all the way from New Jersey. And we look forward to hearing your views on digital transformation and the way technology is shaping the world. Your thoughts on leadership, change management. So we'll be covering a lot in this show. And before we begin, I want to introduce you to our audience. So Nitin Sethji is a seasoned professional and entrepreneur and corporate leader. He's the chief executive officer at Incido. Prior to Incido, he was the chief operating officer of Flipkart. He has also headed Fidelity International as the MD and country head for India, before which he was the director of McKinsey's Global Knowledge Center in India. He holds an MBA from IIM Lucknow and a BTech degree from Indian Institute of Technology. So I'm very proud to be his super junior from college, and I take a lot of inspiration from the work that he has done. So Nitinji, welcome to our show.
No,
Uh,
thanks, Sahil. Thanks, Shobit. Very nice always. I always enjoy both of your company, and it's very inspiring for me what both of you and your team are doing. So very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I also want to introduce my colleague here, Shobit ji. He is the co-founder and dean at the Rashtam School of Public Leadership. So in this episode, we'll ask a few questions to Nitinji on his experiences and the book he has recently authored, and then we'll also take up some questions from the audience. So if you're watching us on social media, you can just type in your questions in the comments, and we will be taking up them with Nitinji. So we'd like to start the session, and to ask the first question, I request Shobhit to begin.
Yeah, thank you, Sahil. Welcome, Nitinji. Glad to have a conversation with you. So, for many people like us, me and Sahil, and I'm pretty sure the audience of this, like you are in many ways a role model because having a stellar career, 25 plus years in leadership roles in world class firms. And Sahil has briefly mentioned them: Incido, Fidelity, Flipkart, right, McKinsey, and very very important roles as well. Like for example, building the entire knowledge center of McKinsey in India and handling Flipkart, that is like almost a daily interaction that we have with that firm. Operations, right, the chief operating officer there, which is I mean a very very difficult task. I'm pretty sure. A little bit of my study in supply chain management, I can tell that it's a very complicated business. And now you are into digital transformation. So can you briefly tell us about your journey? And Sahil mentioned that you are from IIT Delhi, and I just checked up. You did your textile engineering. So this has been an amazing journey from there to where you are today. If you could briefly tell our audience, how did you end up in these important leadership roles? Something that all of us would aspire to be. Please.
Yeah, thanks, Shobit. It's a big question. So look, there are some things that you plan, and then there are many things that happen, and I think that's one of the big insights of life. That the balance between shaping and going with the flow. Yeah, there is a certain balance in life. So you mentioned about textile technology. So I come from a background where my family is in business. It's a joint family business. It's a textile business. So right from when I was in school, it was clear to me that I will do textile technology in IIT, and then I will go into the family business. And that's what I ended up doing. I think I was probably one of the highest ever JE ranks to join textile technology. But that was, I went in, I realized that it was not a very taxing course. It was a very, as IIT goes, it was a very relaxed course, but it gave me the time and opportunity to do a lot of other things in IIT. So I really used my time. I was the sports secretary of my hostel and then the house secretary. It may sound like small things at this point of time, but those were very, very foundational and shaping things for me, shaping me. And whatever I learned, whatever I know about leadership, I really learned it back in my hostel in IIT Delhi. Okay, so it is as important for me. And from there, I went on to work in a textile company, Madura Coats, it's now known as Coats Vayala, because it was still the plan that I'll join the family business. I did that, and I realized that everybody is doing MBA, and all these MBA guys seem to be like very smart. not necessarily more intelligent, but they certainly know how to sell themselves. So I felt I had to do an MBA. So I went to IIM Lucknow. See, IIT Delhi was a lot about sports and extracurricular activities. So I felt, okay, once in my life, I should do studies properly. So I ended up doing that in IIM Lucknow. I was the gold medalist there. And then the big thing was McKinsey. That in '96, that was quite a seen as like a very big goal, and I said, okay, I had to achieve this. So I was fortunate to join McKinsey. I was the first person from Lucknow to make it to McKinsey. My elder brother then told me, okay, if you go to McKinsey, it's very unlikely you will ever come back to the family business. And I think his words were very prophetic. And I think that's where it was a very different journey that started. McKinsey was a great training ground, but the entrepreneur urge was very strong. So I left McKinsey after 4 years, set up a startup, which was a great failure. ActiveCarma.com boom, .com bust. But I think that failure was probably one of the biggest, very important milestones in my life, because till that point I had not really seen failure. But when you see failure, you learn a lot, and I think it was a very big turning point for me. I went back to McKinsey. I was very fortunate, right place, right time. That's when analytics, data was really, beginning to become very important. At the Knowledge Center, I had the opportunity of really building a world-class knowledge center, set up analytics as a global service line. At some point, I felt, okay, I've spent 14 years in McKinsey. I need to do something different. I need to find my own brand, not just be a part of the McKinsey brand. That took me to Fidelity. There, in addition to heading India, I was also heading strategy and transformation for Fidelity's international business. That showed me that, hey, there's a big change happening. This whole digital revolution is happening. Big companies have it. It's a very big challenge for large companies. And actually, being a large global company is not a plus; it's probably a minus. And that's what I felt. Okay, I have to be at the cutting edge of technology, which took me to Flipkart, which was not just at the cutting edge of technology, but was at the cutting edge of chaos also, which was a completely different experience. And then after time there, I felt that, look, the entrepreneur within me, that, hey, I'm done with working in large companies. In large companies, you spend a lot of your energy just managing the stakeholders and managing the politics. I wanted to create. And that's where I said, okay, I want to be in a smaller firm. And that's where I joined Incido. And then, very happy with the set of choices I made. But look, the key point again, which I want to make, for the audience, is that, life is not very deterministic. Life is not a simple equation. There are some things you plan, but there are many things, which are about serendipity. There are many things, where universe is just throwing you signals. If things happen, they happen for a reason. And we may feel disappointed at that point, but in that, there is perhaps the universe is telling us something, and there is a sense of opportunity. So I, that's been my learning. That's been my learning, that how do you both shape the flow, but also learn, how to go with the flow.
Nitinji, I think you are from Aravali Hostel, right, at IIT?
Very much so, Sahil. Very much so.
I'm also your hostel junior, and I think there's something special in Aravali about creating leadership. So very inspired by your journey there. Thanks for describing that entire very fascinating journey from big multinational corporations to the face of Indian startup as Flipkart, and then yourself building a very important tech company. And now you've taken a very interesting kind of outcome of your trajectory in terms of writing a new book on winning in the digital age. And I was reading the book, very interesting book, and a lot of insights for people like me. You have described the VUCA world in that book. How do you describe the VUCA world, and how do you think the digital transformation is shaping this world?
Yeah. So Sahil, we are in the digital age, and it's a very, we often it's known as, seen as the fourth industrial revolution. It's the mega trend of our times. And in this digital age, what you find is that there is the age of abundance. There are amazing set of opportunities. Um, Technology is reshaping everything. And there are billions of dollars being spent on creating new businesses, transforming existing businesses. I think at last count, the number was that over $2 trillion, which is equal to India's GDP, has been spent globally on digital. Okay, $2 trillion. Okay, so just to put things in perspective, but also the somewhat sobering statistic is that 70% of digital transformation efforts do not achieve their um, intended objectives. They fail or they partially succeed. So that's a fascinating number. Yeah. That's like and that's always intrigued me. That why is that? And my realization over the last 10 years that I've been studying this is that hey, these times the digital age is fundamentally different. Yeah, it's fundamentally different. And most leaders, most of us are not able to understand the fundamentals and are solving for things which are at the surface. Yeah. So unless and until you go to the root, you will not succeed. It's just like the rules of the game are changed. It's a different game. You're playing the old game. It's like cricket. Yeah, that it's like, okay, you are a very good 5-day test match team, and then you send the same team to T20, and they don't even they don't know about T20. What will happen? You need to. It's a different sport. And in all of my experience and study, this concept of VUCA is probably the best way of describing the fundamentals of digital age or what is different. Now, what is VUCA? It is volatile, which is constantly moving. It's very dynamic and perhaps somewhat irregular. Yeah, it's like a stock market ticker. It's uncertain, so the outcomes are very uncertain. Like COVID, it's very difficult, yeah, to lay out a path of how it is going to go. Uncertain, it's complex. The cause-effect relationships are difficult to establish. It's not a simple equation. Yeah, it's like this multivariate, very probabilistic, complex equation, and it is ambiguous. The reality is hazy. It's like a mirror with a suit of dust on top of it, so you can't really see yourself clearly. Yeah. So VUCA, if you get your head around this concept of VUCA, I think it kind of helps you really understand that what is so different about this digital age. The second part of your question was, how is digital transformation shaping VUCA? It's the other way around. The digital transformation programs need to factor in that you are in a VUCA world. Yeah. So if you're in a VUCA world, very, very long-term plans or rather very fixed type of plans will certainly fail. Because the situation is so dynamic, it's changing so rapidly. And if you're stuck in a particular frame, you will fail. Yeah. And I can go on and on, but once you get your head around VUCA, I think a lot of the existing management approaches and principles, suddenly you realize that, hey, I need to think about this differently.
Thank you, Nitin ji, for that. The way VUCA world, the way you explained it, and the challenges it brings forth. And when you spoke about your career journey, you said you started off with big firms, and eventually you wanted to set up your own firms. Wanted to work where there is lesser hassle of dealing with stakeholders. I think the young people today, graduating out of various institutions in the country, are doing the opposite. They are starting off with startups, right? And you would have seen this at IITs and many other colleges that they're starting in small firms, and now they are dealing with the VUCA world as well. So, what would be your lesson to them that how do young entrepreneurs deal with this uncertainties, the volatility, complexity, and ambiguity, as well as when they're early in their career and have not worked in structured firms? How do they go about setting up their own startups and be successful in their ventures?
Yeah, I'm very happy that there is a shift that has happened, Shobit. I'm very happy about that. See, there is nothing like experience. There is nothing like doing it. Yeah, you can have you can read whatever. I've written a book, so I should be careful about what I say. But look, the real test is really doing it. Yeah, and this is the age of abundance. This is the point I keep on making. See, when I was growing up, that was the age of scarcity. You became a doctor, engineer, or a doctor. If you're an engineer, you try for IIT. Okay, so it was a very restrictive set of choices, and there's a lot of pressure from parents that it was not necessarily said, but it was often unsaid. That you had to succeed. Uh, this is the age of abundance, and this digital age, there are so many opportunities, and the entry barriers are low. The cost of failure is also low. You can very easily get started. So the just go for it. And that's what I encourage everybody: be an entrepreneur. Be an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur is not just about a startup. That's the point I want to make. It's a mindset. Being an entrepreneur is fundamentally about two things. The first is about creating. See, in the world, my theory is that you have two types of people. Either you have creators or you have takers. Yeah, you have creators, you have takers. And clearly, it's the creators who add more value to the world and add value to themselves. So be a creator. When you create, you have to take risks. Yeah. So those are the two fundamental aspects of being an entrepreneur. And whether it's your own startup or even any company, I think the expectation is that be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So there is no better way to face the VUCA world than by being in it. Yeah. But I would also make two other points that it's learning from your experiences, but also learning from others' experiences. Yeah. So I think there is a great value to good coaches, mentors, role models. Learning from others' experiences. Yeah. And what happens is that often there is so much arrogance. That we are so much in our own head. Yeah. That what we go through is very real. What somebody else has gone through, we are not able to relate to it. And I think that is what I also see as one of the challenges of this generation. Yeah, that there is too much me, too much self. We are in our own heads, we are in our own zone, and being able to just drop that and having the humility and the empathy to learn from others' experiences is I think is what I would suggest, and being able to find good role models, coaches. The traditional Indian concept of guru. As I've grown older and have more experiences in life, I have suddenly, over time, I have realized the importance of that. How important it is. So there are more things I can talk about, but that's one of the key things that I want to share.
Okay, thank you for that, Nitinji. Just expanding on this point, in the book, of course, you have written a lot about how companies and corporates can undergo transformation. Rashtraam and Rishihood, as you know, are socio-educational institutions in that way, right? As well as a lot of the audience and the followers of Rashtraam and Rishihood, they would be involved in social or public ventures, particularly, right? So they are broadly in the non-profit space or working on public issues. So, what would be your advice? Has the digital age also impacted that? There's a constant debate about these things. How much can technology change? Would these sectors also get transformed? And what are those things that we should be prepared for?
Hugely. I think technology and digital is transforming the world, but there are very few sectors where the opportunity and the impact is as profound as education. Yeah. And I think for entrepreneurs and leaders like yourselves, it's a game-changing opportunity. See, the biggest thing about technology, and as far as India is concerned, is that digital technologies have the ability to democratize access to information, access to knowledge. Yeah. See, that has been the bane of our system. Yeah. That our education system has very high variability. Yeah. On one hand, you have great institutions like the IITs, IIMs, and AIMS, which truly are world class and churn out exceptional talent. But then there is vast, the vast space, which is very mediocre or below mediocre. Yeah. Now with technology, suddenly, with this combination of the mobile penetration and digital content, whether you are there in Rajamundry or you are there in Sivakasi or you're there in Navsari in Gujarat or wherever you are, you can now access world class content. World class content. Yeah. So education is a game. For digital for education is a game changer. Is a game changer. Yeah. Both of you are aware that I'm very involved with the Hindu University of America, and see, I think COVID was such a boon for HUA because HUA has been around for a while and has tried different models. But 18 months back, when COVID hit, and we had no option really but to just have a completely digital set of offerings. That was the real point of takeoff for the university. And then every we have 4 semesters in a year. Every semester, we're getting like 600 students, and we now have 125 courses. There is no way we could have had that if COVID had not forced us into a fully digital model. Yeah, and I see it as a big challenge, with existing universities, that universities, who have got who have a physical infrastructure, then almost have this need to, I have an asset, I have invested in the asset, and I have to make sure the asset is leveraged. Yeah. And I'm involved in another university, Paksha University, which you may know about. I think it's an amazing initiative. It's an amazing initiative. Really, some of the best leaders in the country have come together to set up Paksha. But the fact that we've already invested in a very high quality campus near Mohali just very naturally puts certain constraints in terms of how you think about your strategy. Yeah. So I think given that institutes like Rashtraman and Rishivad are still at very early stages, and it is led by very young and dynamic leaders like yourselves, it should really I can't tell you how excited I feel about opportunities with education in India. There are no limits now. There are no limits. The basic message that you have with Rashtra, yeah, which is how do we grow leaders in India? Yeah. To me, it is one of the biggest needs that is there in the country. Yeah. And I would also suggest that it's not just leaders in public life. It's not just that. We have a leadership deficit in India, period. Period. Okay. We have a leadership deficit. Okay. There is this deficit of giving. Okay. We are great at doing well for ourselves, but leadership is fundamentally about giving. Yeah. And it's a deficit, it's a drought. That's the gap in our country. Okay. So possibilities for something like Rashtra, to my mind, are unbelievable that, hey, we want to grow 1 million leaders in India. We want to grow 1 million leaders in all walks of life. And now that, I'm going to embrace, this digital world, and yeah, I may have a kernel somewhere, but, why don't I leverage the power of digital to really, make this a movement, a mass movement? Yeah. It has to be a mass movement. And why limit yourself? I think digital can allow you to just really expand your vision.
That was quite fascinating, Nitinji. And coming from a leader, in the technology space like yourself, it is also very inspiring, because these are like everyday conversations that we keep having. That what's the future of education, and how we should design our strategy to cater to the needs of the future. So thanks for sharing your views. Just to take that discussion a little further on education. So fundamentally, organizations such as Rashtraman and Rishihood, we are centered around knowledge. Our responsibility is to create and disseminate knowledge. You have led a knowledge center, a global knowledge center before, and in your book also you mention about creating global knowledge centers. So what are the characteristics of such a global knowledge center from where educational institutions like us can learn?
Yeah. It was I think, one of the greatest privilege of my life. After Aravali Hostel, IIT Delhi, if there is something I really feel as passionate about is MCKC, McKinsey Knowledge Center. I think these are the two absolutely the greatest opportunities and privilege of my life. So how do you build a great knowledge institution? Yeah. So there are, to my mind, there are 3 or 4 key aspects. I think first is that, first is time. Okay, that building knowledge and a great knowledge-based institution is not a quick fix. It takes time. Yeah. So I think the McKinsey Knowledge Center, justifiably we can say, is one of the very unique knowledge institutions of its type in the world, and one of the largest. But where it started was as a transactional research back office. Okay, so research was a back office in McKinsey. Okay, so when I joined McKinsey in 1996, research was, okay, you needed a report, and there was like a library, and somebody will get it for you. Okay, or if it was not there in the Delhi office library, send a message to Australia, they will fax it, and that's where research started. Okay, it was like a library. Okay, and India was the back office of the back office. So just think where we were in the food chain. But over a period of time, we said, okay, all these requests that are coming, nobody just wants to know, like, revenues, the financial, revenues and profitability and market cap of these 10 companies just for that. There is a reason. Okay, there's a why. Okay, so we encouraged and taught our analysts to ask the why question. Yeah, from that why question, they started going deeper. Yeah, as they started going deeper, that was the beginning of building real subject matter expertise, industry functional. Once they started building expertise, then it was a shift from this reactive model to a more proactive model. That, why just respond to questions that are you being asked, but why not start creating assets? Yeah, and those assets then can be, reused. Yeah. Then said, okay, why create assets, which are just static, which are just like, a document, that asset, if you track it over a period of time, yeah, it almost can become like a database, right? That, you have some data or information which you have for a particular year, or you have for a particular industry. Now you can start doing it for over years, and from that you start getting very different insights. Yeah, or you start doing it across industries. You get cross-sectional insights or longitudinal insights. Yeah, that's the next stage. And so that led to this notion of proprietary knowledge. And from there, the next thing was, okay, we can monetize this. We can build new client services which are based on this. Yeah. So in 8-10 years, we went through this journey. We went through this journey from being a transactional, answering questions and answers, to being, the secret sauce for a firm like McKinsey. But it took time, and it's a step-by-step journey. That every step you take, you build capabilities. Those higher capabilities then allow you to take the next step. Yeah. If you're trying to make a leap, it would have not been possible. Yeah. So that's point number one. Point number two is about quality. That a focus on quality. Yeah. And therefore, it may be okay to go slow to go far. Yeah. Because there is, see, especially in today's world, it is the digital age is also the information age. See, there is just so much out there. Yeah. And it is only quality which will matter, because if you're just adding to the noise out there, if you're just adding to the mediocrity out there, then what's the point? Yeah. So quality is super critical, and quality comes through focus. Quality comes through focus. So yeah, it's probably okay for Ashram to start, or Shiv to start with a particular focus. Yeah. Because that focus is, and spending some time is fundamental to quality. Once quality is there, you then can really expand. Yeah. So that is point number two. Point number three is talent. That how do you? It's fit for purpose talent. Yeah. It is high quality talent, but the high quality talent does not always mean like IIT, IM, and all of those unnecessary biases that we carry. Yeah. And for me also, that has been a learning and unlearning over a period of time, because I've always been very proud of I'm from IIT Delhi, I'm from Lucknow, and I've over a period of time I've realized how limiting that is. Yeah. So when I was at McKinsey Knowledge Center, and I had this thing about exploring new talent, and we were building, among many things, we were building analytics, and in analytics and data science, there is not much supply of talent. You have Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta, Delhi, very limited, or Delhi School of Economics. So I made this bold move of going to JNU and going, for the Masters in Economics program there. It was a very different profile. It came from smaller towns. Many of them came from Bihar. Did not have the worldview, did not have the exposure, did not even have the proficiency in English, but great talent, very bright, supremely hardworking. Yeah. And I'm so happy to say that some of them are now partners in a global firm like McKinsey. So talent is a very big deal, but talent is not the same as pedigree. Pedigree can be very, very misleading. Yeah. So that's point number three. And the fourth thing I would say is collaboration, or a culture of collaboration. Because knowledge is fundamentally, it's about creating a cycle. Yeah. See, knowledge is not a static process, and it's not a sequential process. Think of knowledge and think of your roles as institutions as like a knowledge marketplace. Yeah. That there are creators of knowledge and there are seekers of knowledge. Yeah. And you're trying to create a virtuous cycle, a knowledge cycle between the creators and seekers of knowledge. Yeah. And that's a culture. That's a culture of sharing. Yeah. So in a firm like McKinsey, one of the secret sauce that McKinsey has is this amazing culture of knowledge sharing. It's just ingrained into everybody. They, and people have benefited, and therefore, they also know that, okay, this is something I have to do. I'll give you a small example. It'll take a minute. When I was very young in McKinsey, and you are put onto these proposals that you are doing, you have to work on this proposal for a new business that you're pitching, and often you know nothing about it. Yeah. I still remember it was maybe 97, 98, something like that. By that 2 years out of business school, the only kind of work I had done in McKinsey was I had done like work in manufacturing plants and operational improvement. Okay. I had a break between two projects. I was asked to work on a proposal for government of Punjab. Yeah. On how do we, help, state of Punjab to develop as a whatever economic superpower and whatever. And I knew nothing about it. Okay. And the partner I was working with, he gave me, we used to have this red book, okay, of contacts. So these are the experts. He said, okay, find the experts and go and talk to them. So there was this guy in Mexico. He was one of the very senior partners in McKinsey. He was the head of the Mexico office. Okay. So he seemed to be the expert in this type of area. I was like so scared talking to him. I was like a little kid, and talking to such a senior guy. I didn't even know how to frame my questions. So I left him a voicemail. Okay. And I left him at such an hour where I was pretty sure that he would not be there in office and he would not pick up the phone. Because I did not have the courage to talk to him. But for some weird reason, at 6 a.m., he picked up the phone. Okay. I don't know why that, but he picked up the phone. And he listened to me for like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, mumbling, stuttering, and whatever I was doing. And he realized that this guy doesn't, he's in trouble. He doesn't know anything. Okay. And then he proceeded to take 1 hour to kind of, educate me. Okay. Now that's an imprint for me for last 20 years. And I'm sharing with you today, right? And that's the point about culture, that knowledge is fundamentally about the culture of sharing. And I think, I think that's something that I think is very important to build.
Oh, that is a very interesting quote, and it testifies your initial two parameters on entrepreneurship about creating value and taking risks. I think this entire journey of building the knowledge center, you've exemplified both these values as a leader. You've in your long journey, you've worked in leadership roles in India, now in the US, in global firms. As India is entering a transformational journey, what do you feel India has to learn? What are the lessons for India? What are the takeaways for India to succeed in this digital era?
See, first I would say that, Sal, that India is remarkably well placed to really be a leader in this digital age. See, every successive industrial revolution, you've had a new global leader. So with the first industrial revolution, see, till then Asia was the dominant economic superpower. After the first industrial revolution, Europe really came to to center stage. And then second and third industrial revolution, it was the rise of America. And Europe receded somewhat. I think this digital age, I don't think it's about one leader, but of course, China is seen as common wisdom as one of the leaders. But I think that India, it's a great opportunity for India because a lot of the fundamental building blocks are there. The big thing is this democratization of access to information and knowledge, which will, I think, liberate, it's like a second independence thing, that the hundreds of millions of young Indians, they will now have access, which is amazing. And you back that up with very high level of smartphone penetration, very high level, very low cost of bandwidth. Yeah. You have this Aadhaar stack, which is kind of enabling, which is a very important thing. And you have already a very big base of the IT industry. You have 800 million Indians below the age of 35. You put all of these factors, and it is fascinating. I think no country even remotely has these combination of factors. Yeah. Now the question is that what will it take to really for India to succeed? I think the biggest thing, to my mind, is this entrepreneurial explosion. Yeah, that how do we enable like a wave and wave of entrepreneurship? Because I don't think it is government that can do it. Yeah, the problems of India are so vast and so complex that no government can. Government has a role to play. Yeah, but they can't do it themselves. People have to do it, and digital age gives you the opportunity to create new business models. Yeah, which are capital light, which so I think that to me is how do we unleash that revolution, and I think that's where one of now there are a couple of things which why what are the challenges I've seen with entrepreneurship in India, what needs to be done differently. See, one of my as I've looked at India and as I've now understanding the US a lot more deeply, one of the big the difference is certainly not talent. Talent is, if anything, way superior in India. The difference today is not even capital. Yeah. The main difference I would say is a long-term orientation. There is somehow entrepreneurs in India are in just such a tearing hurry to make money, and I think there is just too much short-term greed. There's too much short-term greed, and I think some level of that desire to make money is a good thing because it drives creativity, it drives action. But there is too much of that. Yeah. And unless you have the long-term orientation, which we spoke about in the context of the knowledge center as well, and that's true for building any high-quality institution. You will not build something which is of true value. Yeah, and I think that has been one of the missed opportunities over the last 5 years. And we've had a lot of capital come into the country. We have had success stories like Flipkart and Oyo and Ola and all of that. But you ask, okay, could we have done better? I think we could have done way better. Way, way, way better. Even with these institutions and a lot more institutions like that, I think that long-term, short-term, I think is a very big point. And as you think about that point, that gets to the point I made earlier, Shobit and Sahil, about leadership. Yeah, because leadership is not, that is leadership. See, leadership is this thing about taking the long-term view. It is about giving before getting. Isn't it? See, there is too much of doing well for yourself, and that has to change. That has to change. If that doesn't change, we will not realize the tremendous opportunities which are in front of us.
Thank you, Nitinji, for sharing that perspective, particularly when you said that a lot of young people are in a tearing hurry and a bit impatient, not realizing their complete potential, looking for shortcuts. This also means that the digital age, as you speak, there's an information overload. Like there's a lot of content out there, the reduced attention spans, as we call it, right? So used to 128 characters to 50 characters now. So people are finding it difficult to read books. And in this time, you have written a book. So for all the aspiring authors out there, if you could help us in understanding how did you, in your busy schedule, how did you go about writing a book? That will help all of us as well to maybe structure our times much better. Yeah.
Yes, in this age of Twitter, I've ended up writing a 550-page book. So, see, look, the key thing again is that you don't do it overnight. Yeah, so I've been writing for I think 10 years now. So I write a blog, and for every month or so, I would write at least 1 or 2 articles, and it would all go to my blog. And then over a period of time, it was not just my blog. I started writing in Forbes, and especially as within CEDO, I ended up writing a number of articles in Forbes, and I think that really provided the foundation. And our team came up. Initially, the whole idea was that, hey, all this that you've written, why don't we package it in some nice way for our clients? That was the idea. I said, okay, fine. And then, we put it together and we took it to a number of publishers. And then, wow, Penguin Random House, which is the largest publisher in the world, expressed interest. And then I got really serious about it. I said, okay, I never expected this. Because I hadn't, it's again serendipity, again going with the flow that, I never expected it. And then I said, okay, let's put in time and let's kind of, let me just shape it in a proper way. And then I took a couple of months and, put in intense focused effort. Yeah, because without that intense effort, it would not have happened. But the point is that if I did not have the content, which I've been building over 10 years, there is no way I could have written a book. With leading a young company, there is no way at all. So again, long term, great things or whatever things don't happen suddenly. You have to keep on building towards that.
Nitinji, one of the not so famous traits about your hardworking, visionary personality is your spiritual quest. So we would love to know more about your spiritual journey and how you think it has helped you in your profession.
It's a very important thing for me. See, spiritual journey to me is a journey within. There is the digital age. This world is the world outside. It's also a world of. This world is a world full of contradictions and paradoxes. And to succeed in the world, this outside world, you have to go deeper and deeper inside yourself, and that is what I call spirituality. Nothing else. It's a process. It's a journey of going inside. I think I've been very fortunate that I grew up in a family, where I got some of those impressions early on in my life. One of my earliest memories of a book is my elder brother had gone on this college trip and he got this the collected works of Swami Vivekananda, and I think I was in maybe class 5 maybe or something like that, and I read it and I didn't fully get it. But even just the first couple of chapters, gave me this great sense of I don't know, sense of you get lifted. You just you great sense of inspiration, great sense of of energy, and then that I think stayed. And then one of my maternal uncles was deeply into meditation, and whenever he would come home, he would get me to sit down with him and do meditation. And he was a very successful person. He was chairman of MTNL, Mahanagar Telephone Nigam. So he was always a role model for me that, okay, such a busy person is, deeply into meditation. So I'm very fortunate to have those imprints. And then, when I had this whole failure with active karma, my first venture, I think that really forced me to assess, life. That, I was saying, oh, I'm like Superman. I can do anything. And then, you have a very big, visible failure. And that's when I got into art of living. And I think, and I've been doing that for 20 years. And I think that put a certain structure into my spiritual journey. And then over the last, I would say 30 years, I think Gita has been a very, very important thing for me. That it was one of the first books I took with me, that I took with me myself to IIT Delhi. The very thin version from Raja Gopalachari, and I've over time maybe read 13, 14 different versions. So I feel just so fortunate that I had the right inputs at different stage of my life. But it is certainly a very, very important thing for me. And again, to our audience here, and I would see, India is the land of spiritual wisdom. Okay, this is the land where the Vedas, the Upanishads, which is where, see, these are not religious texts in that sense. These are deep texts of science and philosophy. Often I see this kind of, almost it's become fashionable to say that, oh, it's science versus religion or spirituality, which is the most stupid thing possible, because this is deep science. This is deeper than the science that we understand today. Okay, it's there. It is there, and it is our heritage. Yeah, the West is discovering it. This town I stay in, New Jersey, has got 3 yoga studios. Okay, and we come from the land of yoga. Okay, I'm often invited to speak on conferences or on mindfulness, and I say, okay, what exactly this mindfulness? Isn't this dhyan? Like, do we have to use like a different term for it? So we come from the land in a way this is innate to our land and our culture. And I very strongly feel that this is going to be the success factor for the world we are in. We have moved from IQ to EQ, okay? Intelligence quotient to emotional quotient. And I very strongly feel that, in coming days, it is going to be SQ, spiritual quotient. That is going to be the differentiator. And I think all of us, in India, come from India. Should be our competitive differentiator.
Certainly, Nitinji. I think this philosophical and spiritual grounding that you have, it's one of the most inspiring things to learn from a leader like you. We have some questions from the audience, but I think we're almost out of time. So maybe we can take one question if the host can put it up on the screen, and then we will.
FOMO and hunger desire is becoming a challenge for people who are starting out. See, this is exactly the problem. There is so much noise. In digital age, we have so many impulses, so much distraction that you go crazy. You just keep on chasing, and it connects back to the conversation we were just having on spirituality. Even if you don't like the word spirituality or have some prejudices with that, so at the least, what certainly you need to know is that you need to quieten your mind, okay, and think for yourself, okay, think for yourself and know for yourself. Okay, so let me take this in the context of entrepreneurship and startups. Okay, with some maybe maybe what audience may relate more with. So one of the biggest challenges I see in startups is that it is the FOMO. It is the FOMO. It's the fear of missing out, and it is just whatever is the latest thing that has happened in Bay Area. Let us just copy paste it. Control C, Control V. Yeah. Control C, Control V. Now, if you look at the greatest entrepreneurs, okay, look at Steve Jobs, or look at anybody, okay, their ideas, their inspiration, and what they did came from deep within them and came from their personal experiences. Came from pain points that they saw specifically and directly. उन्होंने Control C, Control V नहीं किया था. You look at Steve Jobs, and I find him to be such a fascinating case study, role model. See, he went to college. He took only one course, okay, and that one course was on design, okay, on graphics, on font design. Yeah. That was his thing. And if you look at Apple products till today, was his thing. He operated from a deeply personal and intuitive sense of design, and that is what drove the products. Yeah. So if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, or whatever you want to be successful in, it has to come from a personal experience. And for that, you have to drop this FOMO thing, yeah. Like the world, lot of it is happening. If you try keeping up with it, you will go crazy. It is genuinely, I'm saying, crazy. I think one of the biggest challenges in this age is mental health. If you're constantly just chasing everything out there, it's just very, very stressful, very taxing. So you have to go within. And that's why meditation or whatever is so critical. Even if you don't want to do meditation, at least just think and just sit down and think for yourself.
So that was a lot to digest, and where we started on leadership and technology to going deep within. Thanks. You covered a lot in that crisp 1 hour. If there are any final thoughts that you would want to leave all of us with, and then I'll request Shobhaji to conclude the session.
Yeah, maybe I'll make 2 points. Now that I've written the book, I have to make a plug for the book as well. So, winning the digital age. Look, I've tried to really, capture. For me, it's really the objective is to whatever I've learned is to share that and is to give. And it's not a commercial venture for me by any stretch of imagination. So I think it covers a lot. See, when I was growing up, I found that book. There were 2 books that guided me. One was the Gita, which I've talked about, and the second was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And those 2 books, really had an imprint, and that's really what I want you to do. That in this digital age, a handbook which can help young people. So I just wanted to mention that. The final comment I would make is from where we started. That look, digital age is the age of abundance. Okay, is the age of abundance, is the age of opportunity. There are so many opportunities to leapfrog. Okay, so, and it is so great to be young because you're not burdened by failures and burdened by history, by legacy. So just go out there, and do things and be an entrepreneur. And have that sense of creation, have that sense of contribution. I think it's so amazing. It's great for you and it's great for the country. And this is our time. This is our time as a country in so many ways. And we will do that. That will happen by creating entrepreneurs and creating leaders. And I think each one of you can be an entrepreneur, each one of you can be a leader. So my very best wishes to all of you.
Thank you, Nitinji, for sparing your time. And what I found fascinating in the entire conversation is typically when you see a title of the book like this, and you would expect that the author is more focused on business transformation. But I think what you brought out is that it is the leader, it is the entrepreneur, and the motivation has to be deep within. And it is a more of a self transformation or a personal journey as well. And you spoke about that. That is very, very important. And that's also the focus at Rashtra and Rishihood, that you have to create the future leaders of this country. And transformation outside will not happen without the transformation within. And you spoke about spirituality, what inspires you. I think that is actually a very unique perspective that we typically don't get to hear in the business world as much. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I encourage all the audience to check out the book for sure. The link is there at the bottom of the screen as well. You can look it up online and follow the author as well. Very inspiring posts I see from him on LinkedIn and other places he posts. So please follow. I think there's a lot of knowledge that we can tap into from him. Thank you once again. We'll meet again next time.
Thank you, Shobhaji, Salji. Always such a pleasure talking to both of you. Yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.